The first step is to tape down your sheet of 5x7 blank paper. And you want to make sure it's the same orientation as your reference photograph. And your goal is to kind of give it a little bit of a border so that when you peel back the tape, there's a little white border all the way around your image. And you're going in there right now and you're using a pencil to outline any shapes you see. And I do want you to include the landscape when you're doing your drawing. So you want to look for basic shapes and you're loosely drawing them. You shouldn't spend too much time on the drawing. You're just getting down kind of a generalization of each shape. That includes drawing trees or that little house if you have that particular reference picture. It also includes clouds in there as well. When you're doing your drawing, it's important to draw light because we are layering paint on top, and the last thing you want is to see your pencil strokes through the paint. When I start a landscape painting, I always go to the sky first. And when you're doing it, it's important that you start at the top of the sky. So you go all the way to the top of your paper, and that's really where the darkest value will usually occur within the sky, is right at the top. And if you were to walk outside right now and look at a blue sky, the top of the sky, if you tilt your head up, is darker than it is at the horizon. And all of these pictures demonstrate that. They're all darker at the top and they slowly get lighter as they go towards the horizon line. So that's something you want to replicate when you're painting sky. And it's important that you look for three things when you're trying to color match. You want to look for temperature, hue, and value. And that's what I'm doing there. Even within the two corners at the top of the sky, one of my corners is darker and a little bit cooler than the other corner. So you want to make sure that you are using short strokes. When I paint skies, I almost always either use a short vertical stroke or an X mark. I want you to try avoiding using any horizontal marks. The only time you'd use a horizontal stroke is if you're rendering a cloud that looks long and streaky. And even then, it wouldn't be one long stroke, it would be a couple of short strokes. So as I'm going towards like the middle part of the sky, there's a little bit of a influence of green. So I'm adding dark blue, but I'm also adding the dark green that we have on our palette and a little bit of white to get it to green. That gets me like a light turquoise or a seafoam green color. If this were a normal afternoon sky, it would get paler and paler with more of a yellow influence as it goes down towards the horizon. However, this is a sunset. So far, you can see a darker view at the top as it's going towards the horizon. It's starting to get lighter, and now I'm getting it even lighter. There is a tiny bit of violet there due to the sunset, so I'm getting in kind of a lavender shade. So lavender is violet and white. Now I'm going into the cloud. The cloud was illuminated by the sun itself, so there's red orange in there and there's kind of a glow. And then where it's not being illuminated, that cloud turns into a muted violet. Muted violet meaning that there's a little bit of yellow added to the violet. And on your first layer, expect it to be transparent in parts. Like that's what's happening here. It's a little bit transparent. It can look annoying and frustrating at first. With a second coat, it's going to look more solid, less see-through, and it will look more attractive. I posted my image up there to the right so you can see how I'm looking at the image and how I'm trying to color match. It is a really good idea to hold up either your brush or your palette knife to your reference picture to check a color. I did that multiple times. On that sun's really glowing. It needs to be white and a drop of yellow. And then there's kind of an aura of glow around the sun, so it's yellow, yellow gold. The sky just to the left and to the right of the sun has some peach notes in it. So that's something I would expect you to do as you're looking at your reference. I need you to start looking at it and identifying what color is that? How would I make that? If you get stuck, it's not a big deal. Call me over. I'm happy to help you come up with a color recipe that you can use. And now this color recipe thing, that just takes time. After a while, you make so many colors and you learn and memorize those recipes so you can make pretty much any color there is and get close to it. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect match. It's actually more important that the value is correct and the temperature is correct than the actual color itself. Now, in the landscape, I am going dark without using any black. So there's no black that I used in this entire painting. To do that really dark kind of hillside, I went with dark green, cherry red, like a bright red, and dark blue. And it looks kind of like black, but it's not. It's actually much stronger because black is very flat. There's a little bit of red violet here in the land. There's a lot of earthy tones there too, so be on the lookout for earthy tones in your landscape. You don't have to capture everything on the first layer. That's why we paint in multiple layers. So there are some like sun rays that are striking the foreground, the earth too, but I'm not going to be particularly cautious right now at this stage. I'm just going to focus on getting down the essentials. I do want to try and show a sense of depth even at this early phase in the painting process. For that sunflower patch, I am intentionally working around the flowers themselves. I don't want to paint them on top later because that's going to look tacky, and it's not going to work because yellow is a very transparent color. If you try to put yellow on top of like a dark blue-green, it's going to be totally transparent, so you'd actually see through to the blue-green background. So I am painting around that. I'm getting the center of the flowers, kind of a brown color. I made my own brown. I did work off camera to do the flowers, but here's a comparison right now of the reference picture to my painting. And it's not perfect, but you get a sense of depth through the sky. And even if you're not doing a sky in your background, I still want you to have some kind of ombre to show depth on most of yours. I shouldn't see just a plain flat background. I want to see some idea or suggestion of far back space. Now I have some extra time. I'm going to go in and put a second coat. You can layer these more than twice. If you have the time, I would recommend that you do that. Just remember that you're painting thinly, so you don't want to paint thick your first layer. That way you can go in on a second coat and get it smoothly over the top. Putting a second coat does a couple of things. It allows you to fix any values. It also makes things a little bit smoother. You can work on the transitions a little bit better. It also makes the paint less transparent. There are places where you're going to have some colors that look see-through, and you want that to become opaque. The other reason is because this is what the professionals do. They layer their paintings, and it's actually kind of cheating or doing a sort of disservice if you don't put multiple layers on, according to the gallery world. So my goal with you guys is to try and teach you guys professional standards. So I'm having you do what most professional artists do. And I'm not saying this is the only way you can do things. I'm just showing you one way, especially on this first painting that we're doing together. Now I did work more on this painting off screen, but I'm just going to go ahead and pause it there so that you have enough time to start and hopefully layer up your sky painting.